Well, ladies and gentlemen, as expected, Nintendo did announce a Direct for this week. It's been rumored for a while now that it would be on a day that you wouldn't necessarily expect a Direct, and that's happening this Friday. And as we've gone over in multiple different videos and Newswave, yeah, that is uncommon for them. But something else has happened now with this official announcement that makes me very curious as to what Nintendo is about to show up with. And it's something that we've only seen once, and that was with the Switch 2 console reveal. We'll go over that here today. So if you guys enjoy this video, hit the like button and subscribe if you're new. Also, if you haven't checked out Newswave yet, that is live. That went up this morning. And then, of course, Nintendo decides to just go ahead and announce a Direct as usual in the morning. But let's take a look. This is the announcement that they posted up on their Twitter X account, saying Nintendo of America, join us on September 12th at 6 a.m. Pacific, 9 a.m. Eastern for Nintendo Direct. Tune in for roughly 60 minutes of information on upcoming Nintendo Switch 2 and Nintendo Switch games. So there's a lot of stuff to really point out here, but the first one I guess we have to point out here is that Switch Force was correct. They've been talking about this Direct, this September 12th Friday Direct for a couple weeks now. And because of that, and they were right, hey, you got to give them credit on this one. They were indeed correct. So there you go. Now, they also mentioned like 3 games themed around the number 7 and stuff. So we'll see how all of that turns out. But at least for now, we have a Direct this Friday, so 2 days from now. And it's the longest Direct we've seen other than the Nintendo Switch 2 reveal Direct, and that is for an entire console, a new generation starting. So you figure they have to take a bit longer for that. Normally, a Direct is 40 to 45 minutes long. That's usually what we expect. So when I saw 60 minutes, I went, whoa, okay, that's a bit more than I was expecting. But it also kind of makes sense based on where it is exactly in the year. All right, so one, we have a September Direct that would start setting up the rest of this year and then into next year, we assume, since the next Direct probably won't be till probably 6 or 7 months or so from now. We'll look to maybe February or March, I'm expecting. But the other thing is there's an anniversary the following day with Mario. And 60 minutes, you go maybe 40 minutes there, 20 minutes here for Mario. So maybe they are trying to cram as much in as possible here ahead of the weekend. That Direct, the anniversary does happen the day after the Direct here in the US. Now, the other thing with this, there have been a lot of rumors around different games that could be shown here. And VGC did a good job laying all this out, kind of putting it together. I think what I'll do is I'll really look into more and more of this, and maybe tomorrow morning ahead of the Direct, which will be the following morning then, maybe we'll just go over all the different things that have been kind of thrown around and rumored and reported on as heading to the Switch 2, and we'll see how much that actually hits the following day on Friday. However, the obvious one here, Metroid Prime 4, and if you look at the announcement, Switch 1 and Switch 2 games, the Metroid Prime 4 is cross-gen, so with that in mind, okay, well, there's one of your Switch 1 and Switch 2 games right there, and it needs a release date. It was just rated in Brazil, so now it's starting to sound more and more like, okay, this thing it's complete. It has the SRB rating. It's ready to go. And I saw some people wonder, would they shadow drop Metroid Prime 4? And the answer, I feel like, no, I don't think so. But they could shadow drop some other Metroid Prime games, as I still think they would want to get 2 and 3 on the Switch. They've done this with a bunch of the previous series. Like, think about Xenoblade or Pikmin, where they just start rifling off games, getting all of them onto one platform. And Metroid Prime 2 and 3 should be able to exist fine, we assume, on the Switch 1. So why not have it so that it's there? Then maybe do some kind of update for Metroid Prime Remastered for the Switch 2, just to move resolution up, maybe even frame rate, but at the very least, make it so it's not necessarily blurry on the handheld screen that's using 720p image and then blowing it up to an 8-inch display. I think it'd be cool to have that, and then going into Metroid Prime 4, which I really do think would be end of October, beginning of November. So it wouldn't shock me if we see it first week of November, for example. And then you have that, and then a couple weeks later, you have Kirby Air Riders, and a few weeks before Metroid Prime 4's release, you have Pokemon Legends ZA. All this works together to kind of build up that holiday season for Nintendo. You also, as they mentioned, have Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment. I'm starting to feel more and more like that's a January release at this time, just because they're running out of room for games. I know, a tough problem to have, I know. And then Splatoon Raiders, that could legitimately just come out really to me anytime. That could even be there like that. Sometimes we get that first week of December game. It wouldn't surprise me if Splatoon Raiders fell into that. And then the big elephant in the room is that Mario anniversary, the 40th anniversary that takes place the following day on Saturday. It kind of seems like to me, this is 60 minutes so they can fit in at least something for that Mario anniversary. And, you know, Mario Galaxy 2 is right there. A remaster, maybe a remake, kind of that in-between sort of release where you're not really sure if it's a remake or remaster because it looks so good, but they don't change too much stuff. I think that is an obvious release and an easy one for them to do. But who knows? Maybe they want to go crazy and say, here's the next 3D Mario game to coincide with the Mario movie that's coming out next year. Let's get that moving and let's start showing it here. I think that'd be really cool to see it since, people are looking for the next big 3D Zelda or the next big 3D Mario game. And when I ran the poll for it, people were like, yeah, it's time for 3D Mario. And I agree. I think it's time for the next big one. So in that case, maybe that's a way that they even close the show out with talk around even the Mario anniversary. So that'll be definitely something to watch. And then third-party games. Some are pointed out here by VGC with Resident Evil, as now the belief is that every Resident Evil RE Engine game is coming over. And yes, I would assume so, considering Capcom has gone as far as to like port backwards with something like Resident Evil 4, where the last system I think that was announced for that was the PlayStation 4. So why wouldn't they go, you know what? Let's put it on the Switch too. We've seen now with Star Wars Outlaws, the port there is legitimately impressive, and people are going, wow, this system can run maybe more than they were expecting. So then you start rattling off things from Microsoft, where they have a whole slew of titles they could start moving over. And oh yeah, Ubisoft, who I have to imagine is thrilled with what they're seeing right now with the Switch 2. Probably start moving over Assassin's Creed, considering we've heard about things like Assassin's Creed Shadows making the move over. That, based on what we've seen with Star Wars Outlaws, could end up being the most impressive port just in general on the Switch 2, because the game does look good on the PS5 or the Xbox Series, but if it can just translate over decent enough, that is a game that will feel massive for the Switch 2, even more so than what we've seen with Star Wars Outlaws. So that's one that wouldn't shock me if all of a sudden Ubisoft had an entire section and here's a bunch of games dropping in. But with the Xbox, we have heard that Starfield is apparently coming to the Switch 2, and this whole thing around Halo has been out there for a while. Maybe they decide to move one of the Halo games over just to see what happens here with the Switch 2 crowd, or they go crazy and say, here's like the entirety of the Master Chief Collection, which would be kind of tough since that is a massive like overall package with all those games. And I mean, just talked about file size. It took them a while, Microsoft, to roll these games out to PC. Like seriously, it was like they did one release almost at a time, and it took a good part of a year or so to make that happen. But 60 minutes for a direct is that's a bit more again than I was expecting. I think pretty much everyone else. So this is big for the Switch 2. Get some games flowing here. I mean, they're just about out of first-party games that are dated, with Pokemon Legends ZA at least coming up here in October, but otherwise, Metroid Prime 4, Hyrule Warriors, Age of Imprisonment, Splatoon Raiders all need release dates, and you figure they want to start setting things up just in general with, I'm sure, a couple of surprises still left for this year, but a 60-minute Nintendo Direct a day before the Mario 40th anniversary, something tells me this is going to be a pretty big event for Nintendo and the Switch 2, and at this time, a much needed one with calls for some of these release dates and just more games for the system heading into next year. But let me know what you guys think about this one down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.